Elise Boulding was born in 1920 in Norway, and she was brought to the United States to be raised by a mother who was horribly homesick for Norway and had told her many stories and developed a security for Elise of her homeland. Unfortunately, at the beginning of World War II, the Nazis invaded Norway, and that crumbled that security right out from beneath her feet. Many times during her life, she would say that that was that one event that propelled her into her life's passion of creating an environment of waging peace around her to bring an ultimate goal of world peace. She was a Quaker, a peace scholar, an advocate for women, a writer, an educator. She taught at both the University of Colorado at Boulder and at Dartmouth, and had received her PhD at the University of Michigan after her children had grown into their teen years. One culmination of all of her life's work brings a clear perspective for her passion, a clear perspective to conflict resolution, and I'd like to share with you that perspective today and to introduce you to the people that she touched throughout her life. Miss Boulding liked to say that we were a world of worlds all on a common ground, and she would plead for greater consideration of third world countries and the primitive cultures and societies. I believe that came deep in her heart during that time when she lived under the oppression of the World War II, when she was just a child. When it came time to raise her own children, she saw a unique perspective, a unique opportunity to teach them to work toward waging peace instead of just trying to avoid war. In many different ways and throughout her life to many different people, she communicated the idea that conflict is inevitable, but diplomacy is not innate. It must be skillfully taught, just like it is skillfully taught to wage war. She believed that the best life lessons came in social and intimate relations, that we learn and develop conflict resolution as we grow. And the wonderful part about that is that every person, every day, has the choice, the chance to choose to wage peace instead of war. And she urged everyone she talked to throw themselves into this often lonely pursuit of peacemaking. She was a peacemaker, and many felt her passion. Besides just being a skilled networker, she'd bring in women, rallying women and Quakers into groups to protest nuclear testing and the military action in Vietnam. Besides those things, she believed that one of her most important calls to action was challenging people in workshops across the country to envision a future where conflict could be resolved without threat or without military action. She was a high-energy person. She received her PhD late in her life, and then she ran for Congress in 1960. She was an avid opponent of the Vietnam War, the only woman to ever sit on the commission to establish the U.S. Institute of Peace by presidential appointment, and that was through Jimmy Carter. She was a board member on 5 distinctive peaceful organizations, a few of them being the National Peace Institute Foundation, the Boulder Parenting Center, the International Peace Research Association Foundation. Quantification of her life's work was on waging peace was hard found, but it finally came to her in 1996 when she wrote the book Building a Global Civic Culture, an Education for an Interdependent World. She believed that we as a country have the ability, or we as a world of countries have the ability to establish a durable peace in any partnership, and that we could see beyond it to the past and ahead of it into the future. If we could do that, we would be able to bring this durable peace into fruition. An example she gave of that is a mediator who would come up on a quarrel and be expected to bring resolution, whether that be between two partners or a parent and a child, or between heads of state on a global stage. There was no difference in the way that quarrels are negotiated. Many times it's a replay of a familiar divide, she said, and that between the two sides, and that earlier issues could be used to understand the divide itself. And it would expand our sense of time to look back into our past. To keep from going too far back, and to facilitate going forward and using forward thinking simultaneously as we looked in the past, she suggested a medium range. And what she called it was a 200-year present. That would bring relevance to the present as well. And the way that it works is that it is 100 years from today into our past and 100 years from today into our future. To apply that, we could look at 100 days from today, 100 years from today, back into our past in 1914. Just 5 years later, 26 nations went to the Hague Peace Conference, and they got together and formed the League of Nations. Just a few years after that, 30 or so, 50 states had grown in that group, and they are now what we call the United Nations. While a deep divide does still exist between the nations, steady improvements have been made toward negotiation and mediation, and the establishment of peaceful negotiation has held world war at bay. These same precepts are guiding us today through the conflicts in Crimea. Boulding said that peace seekers don't have an easy job, particularly working with inside the UN and in situations like that, because usually the representatives don't have the right or the authority to sign the agreement. So they go from the conference table back to their people, the country's officials, and they discuss this and then come back to the table and then leave the table again and then come back to the table and on and on. She says that the only reason any positive change is ever found is because these thousands of people go back and forth. And the only reason they do that is because they have a vision for peace. Elise Boulding had a vision and the heart of a peacemaker for more than 80 of her 89 years. Before she finally succumbed to liver failure and complications with Alzheimer's, her life's goal to educate the world to wage peace was realized. The 200-year concept, 200-year present concept, is employed in many of the highest diplomatic arenas throughout our world, and it offers a perspective of peace to a highly militant world. Her models of peace studies are still in place today, as are her ideals that she planted so deep in all of the people that she touched. Her surviving children and cherished grandchildren are well equipped to carry her legacy on and to perpetuate it into the next 100 years.